All right. We're live. What's going on, Orlando?
Almost live.
Almost live. Joe O'Connor, Dean Baker,
Hey.
PFX Media, PFX Media, and enough about me. Arlene Lagos.
Arlene Lagos.
Arlene Lagos, what's going on?
Not much, just, trying to get through the madness.
Yeah.
It's a little crazy.
Plenty of madness out there.
Wondering what June's going to bring. I have my money on aliens or possibly just dying through the Sahara Desert.
Is that what we're looking for, an alien invasion?
Yeah,
next?
well, I'm thinking cue the aliens.
What else could happen?
Cue the aliens. There's a meme going around with two aliens backstage waiting to go on.
Oh, and they're like nervous.
Oh, I'm so nervous. We're next.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, if they're going to introduce aliens, this would be the perfect time because nobody would freak out. We'd all be like, oh, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah. No problem. But I saw another one with the Coke boars. Like,
Oh, yeah. That and meth gators.
Who had Coke boars?
Yeah, I know. I didn't see the meth gators coming, but now that I think about it, it's totally makes sense. So
Meth gators make sense, absolutely.
Yeah.
So actually, though, why? What's today? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I don't know. Nothing happened. Oh, I guess we had a couple of things happen over the weekend, but it's been a quiet day, news-wise, right?
As far as I know, I mean, they're still ticking up the numbers, every day.
Yeah.
Just
I spoke to somebody who's in the medical field, and they were saying that the actual hospital is empty. It's because people are going out and getting tested.
Yeah.
And, if they test for antibodies, they become a positive.
they get added as a number.
And so the number goes up, but the reality is nobody's running to the hospital. Not that this thing is over, but there's still, I think there was 4 people on a ventilator. But it was the same 2 weeks ago.
Looks like we have Justin Robinette is
smell trouble.
woohooing us from the chats. Chris Ballinger, last
JR.
week's guest, is in here, and
Chris.
looks like we got Carlos, one of our technical directors, out in the world. Actually, he's directing tonight.
All right.
And Justin's here. So
Hi, everybody.
welcome aboard. Anybody want to ask a question? Also, too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is your question, Joe?
So let's talk about you for real.
Okay.
So you actually do you have a company, but before we get into that, you're a writer,
I am a writer.
and you have many self-published books.
I have 8 books that I've published. I have some short stories as well that are published in different anthologies. And I've also written several screenplays and lots of poetry, some rap.
Some rap.
True story.
Really?
It's true. Yep.
Are you going to spit some lyrics here?
I might, I might. People think it's weird, but I'm probably one of the best white female rappers over 40.
What?
I found my niche.
That's the demographic you want to be in if you're,
It's mine. It's
if
all
you're
my
looking to be
niche.
number one, it's a clear shot.
I got it. No one
You got
else.
it.
I got it.
So what was the first book you wrote?
The first book that I wrote in entirety was Beyond Earth, which is a sci-fi fantasy book.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote
I didn't know that. Really? You wrote sci-fi fantasy?
I wrote a trilogy.
I
Beyond
didn't know
Earth,
that.
Beyond Planets, and Beyond Time.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, so I know you're probably thinking of Butterfly's Wake.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Butterfly's Wake started as a short film.
Yeah.
And then when I had to move back to Massachusetts from Charleston, my friend said, you should write it into a book. And I was like, a book? That's like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, I'm in Massachusetts and I was living in a small town.
Shout out Massachusetts. Yeah.
Anyway, go Red Sox. But
Couple of massholes here.
Massholes.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
all right. I can handle it.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
But yeah, so it was actually interesting how I stumbled into the writing was through NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Oh.
Which is once every year in April. It's just this kind of like nonprofit that it encourages people to write 50,000 words in 30 days.
Wow. So
And
you wrote this book. You wrote your first book in 30 days.
I wrote my first book, and I wrote 50,400 words in 30 days.
Wow.
There's like a meter you go in, and of course it's all in the honor system. I mean, if you lie, you're really just fooling yourself.
Yeah.
How many pages a day is that?
Well, it's not really pages as much as
Wait, I'll have to get my calculator.
No, it's-
out. I'm doing that
it's
now.
1,667 words a day.
Oh wow, you know.
Oh no, yeah, there's a meter. They'll tell you how many words every time you enter like your word count. It'll tell you how many words you need to finish by. So if you're like lagging, and they'll be like, okay, now you didn't write for 2 days, so now you need to write like 5,000 words in the next 3 days in order to get back on track.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
but it's great because it really what it does is it forces you to write and not constantly edit.
Yeah.
Which is
Just
everybody.
go forward.
Just
forward,
keep
go
going,
forward.
even if it sounds like nonsense. Even if it's like I'm making chili and I'm gonna throw like ossobuco in it and
Yeah.
mac and cheese. I don't
Yeah,
care. It doesn't
yeah.
make sense. And
And you're like, I'm gonna get it
you
done.
just keep making it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then look back and go, okay, maybe I gotta add a little salt.
That's
there.
incredible.
Yeah, it's actually it was great because what it taught me was how to just push through, and then go back and edit because I think a lot of people do why they can never finish their writing.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
they're constantly re-editing the first like 3 chapters.
Yeah.
Just push through, and that's how I did it.
Wow, really? You did it in 30 days, huh?
Yeah, so I did it 4 years in a row. The third year, I don't know what I had going on, but I just was like, I'm not gonna make it. But for 3 years, I did hit my mark, and so I did
Wow.
it for like two of the Beyond Earth books and Butterfly's Wake.
And then okay, so that was 3 out of 8. That's how you did them in 30 days.
Yeah.
How many people in the world wish that they could write a novel, and you knocked out 3? Yeah, and why'd you wait a year? Why didn't you take a month off and do it again?
Well, I think after that 30 days, you spend the rest of the year kind of editing,
Going over that book.
going over it, making sure that it's edible and palatable
Yeah.
readable, but it's now you have it, and now you've got most of the work done in that instance.
Wow.
Whereas I found when I didn't challenge myself that way, or force myself to keep going, I was
Yeah.
stuck on the same 3 chapters, just
Wow.
editing and refining, which is great. But if you don't keep going forward, then you're making a short story.
There's a great quote about somebody who writes a letter and then at the end of it says, "I'm so sorry I didn't have enough time to write a shorter letter."
Nice.
You know?
That's perfect. That's perfect.
But yeah, so that's kind of incredible because I know people personally that would love to write a novel and have stepped into that world and tried and took a year off and didn't get it done and whatever, and it's kind of, for creatives, it's kind of normal that people have these ideas of doing this grand thing, and
Probably just get down to it. You're in front of the keyboard. You got nothing to say.
yeah, they don't understand the principles of the craft. Because you read a book doesn't mean you can write one.
Right.
You know what I mean? Same thing with a movie, right? You just
Yeah,
because you
but-
see a million movies, you can't take the weekend off and knock out a screenplay.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Doesn't work that way.
Sometimes writing's just almost animal. It's just got to come out of you.
Yeah,
And
it's-
and you got to make your maybe it's a little forced. You got to just you got to set the time, but then it's an animal. You can't control it. It's just gonna come out of you.
I tell you what, though, I'm happy that the plumber doesn't feel that way. I'm waiting. Your pipes are burst. I'm waiting for inspiration.
What's
me, it
what's
was-
my motivation?
Yeah, what's my
Well, for me, the biggest thing is like you were talking about, like it's an animal. It really is its own thing. Like when I try to tell non-writers or non-creatives, like, oh, this character.
Why do you talk to them?
Well, I know. Well, because somebody will be like, oh,
Never
well,
understand. Like trying to tell your accountant, like.
I know. Well, I'll say to somebody like, oh, they'll be like, oh, how are you doing today? And most people just lie and they're like, oh, I'm great. I actually tell people how I'm really
you tell
feeling,
people the
which
truth, yeah.
they don't really
Yeah.
sometimes like.
Yeah.
But they're like, how are you doing today? I'm like, my head hurts because my characters are like totally out of control, and this one just wants to be like the main character, and they're looking at me like, okay.
Yeah, I have no idea what to say to you.
Characters run away, man. I've had a character in mind that I thought was going to be just sort of like a small role character,
Yeah.
completely take off with my
Yeah.
script. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
People don't get that. If you're not a creative, you don't get that.
It sounds like my first wife. No, I'm kidding.
Bump.
Sorry. Just a joke.
I'll bet you're sorry.
What happened to that character?
That character became a main character
Did
in
you have
book
to
two.
beat it down? Oh, you had to dedicate an entire work to that character.
Well, the thing is that, the characters are all part of your kind of your psyche. They're part of.
Yeah, they're all you.
They're all certain aspects of you. So you might, think, like, I want this heroic woman to go and do this heroic thing. And then there's like the comic relief, and they just seem funnier, and you want to write about them more. And then you're like, okay, I guess you're going to be a main character. Thanks, So, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes part of you comes out stronger halfway through or in the beginning of writing, and you just keep going with it. And you got to trust that though. Because the more you're like, oh, no, I don't want to write. Listen, it's in your head. You got to like let it out.
So what's your favorite kind of character? Like, what's the greatest flaw you think you've created in a character?
The greatest flaw I've created in a character.
Yeah. She knows. She don't want to tell us.
Vengeance.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh. All right, so now you know. Everybody knows. Be careful.
This is not just a happy face right now.
You're putting it on for us.
Are we back to your ex-wife again?
No, no vengeance, nothing.
But I got to tell you, so with National Novel Writing Month helping me get all the creativity out, what helped me learn how to tighten the story was when I joined this LinkedIn group called Writer 750.
Okay.
Writer 750 is a group. They're still going on right now, but this was like, oh my God, like 5-6 years ago. I can't even count now. The Heather Marie Schultz was the person in charge of it, and she would say, okay, here's the theme. We're going to do pirates, and you have to mention, it's just like what they do with, like, say, 48-hour film fests.
Yeah.
Pirates, you got to mention something
They give you
about
some parameters.
a scary island and a fork or something.
Yeah.
And then everybody in the group would write a story, and it had to be like around 750, 800 words. You couldn't really go too much. And what it did was...
Which is how many pages?
I would say 750.
Get the calculator.
It's like 20 pages or so?
No, maybe like... Well, because it's not script.
Oh, it's not script.
I know. I'm like,
white on the page,
Yeah, no, it's just a short story. But
yeah. But
what I learned is like I'd have an idea like instantly. Oh my God, I'm going to write this, and then I'd be like 1,400 words in, and I'm halfway through my idea.
Oh yeah.
So what it taught me was how to take all of that flood of stuff and edit. This isn't needed. This is
condense it down.
This is exposition. This isn't needed. I already said this. I can say this a better way.
Yeah.
And so that...
Oh, so you wound up learning the craft and the principles of the craft and and being able to say, I don't feel like it today, but I got to perform my craft.
Yeah.
Justin seems to think it's 4 typed pages, Joe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Justin. That's short.
Yeah.
That's really short.
Yeah, but...
I mean, how are you going to get a fork in? I get the pirate in the island...
Well, that's the thing. If you got to say something,
a fork on a pirate island in 4 pages.
Well, if pirates show up and they see sirens, and the siren wants to kill any pirates that
they got the fork.
They get the fork.
Wow. Where have they been keeping the fork?
That's a whole nother story, Joe.
Oh, sorry, kids.
I know, right? My daughter's probably like, "Oh, Mom." Oh, Joe.
Oh my God! Sorry. All right. And then you had to learn how to. Did you go out in the world and say, "Hey, publish my book," or did you just not even try that and just self-publish?
Well, while I was doing the short stories, they'd hold contests, and we'd all in the groups. Like these are people from all over the world that I was writing in this group with.
Yeah.
Like all over the world, and we would vote like our top 3 that we liked, and I started to win.
Oh.
First, second place of the contests.
Ah.
And I was like, oh, I might be actually pretty good at this,
Wow.
And then Heather decided to do an anthology, and it's the Giant Tales anthology. So there's about 8 books out, and I've had, I think, about 4 or 5 of my stories scattered throughout the anthology. But I learned a lot about the business side of it through her, just by watching her, send releases out and copyright information. And then I said, okay, between that and doing with National Novel Writing Month.
Yeah.
If you finish and you do the 50,000 words in a month.
Yeah.
They give you like a discounts on all this like software and proofreading and stuff.
Okay.
They also give you through CreateSpace.com. They give you 1 free copy of your book if you were to upload it.
Oh.
So
hard copy, so that you upload it to their portal, but you can then, they'll send you a hardcover or a soft cover.
But you learn a soft cover. But
Yeah.
I mean, you learn how to work. They walk you through specifications. They walk you through.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of technical baloney.
So, I
whatever,
mean,
yeah.
you know, New England winter, you got like 4 months of nothing to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to figure out how to publish this book.
Yeah.
And I did. And once I did, and once I figured it out, I was like, I can just keep doing this.
Yeah.
And I did.
And then we've spoken about this in the past, but just so that the listeners understand. So then there are these book clubs all over, and they'll actually decide to pick up one of your books, and then 8 of them sell instantly because there's 8 people in the book club, and that keeps happening for you because you have quite a few books out. I mean, 8 books is a fair accomplishment in this world.
Looks like Gerald Godbout just joined us, and Samantha, I can't say her name.
Buchanan?
Burton, yeah.
Yeah.
Buchanan
Hi,
Burton.
Samantha.
Yeah.
Hi, Gerald.
Hi. So,
So it's funny you say about the book club. One book club that I did in Massachusetts, they really wanted to read Butterfly's Wake, which is, you know, kind of like underground female mafia theme. So they really kind of took it to the next level with the book club. When I showed up, it was like they bought like Capone wine. And it was like mafia themed. Like it was really
they had
kind of-
already read the book.
Oh yeah, they'd already
and then they
read
invited
it.
you in because you were like within 50 miles, and they said, "Hey, you want to come in and check it out?"
Yeah, so I
hang
came
out with
in
us?
and they were all drinking wine, and they made it like a Capone themed wine and very kind of like
that's
mafia
cool.
style, and the food, and it was fun. It was good.
And then they asked you questions, or they asked you to speak. Like, what did they do? Like,
They would just tell me, you know, ask me questions about my book, ask me questions about the characters, what inspired me, and then we talk about other books, and you know, just
wow, that's cool.
yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool, and you know, sometimes some of the groups would be more about the book. Other times it'd be just
More about the
people
wine?
just want more about the wine. It's always about the wine.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it was really, you know, like a discussion about, say, feminism or about just changes that need to be made. So
Yeah.
and since all of my books are different, you know, like if I did a book reading for like Outside the Circle with kids, like that's a whole different, you know, niche and a whole different conversation.
But that's a female lead. So are they all female leads?
Yes.
Is feminism because we're gonna get into like what you do now with Dame Media and all that, but in the beginning, right from the get-go, it was feminism or female leads, or how did you find that as a voice?
Well, I felt that in many books that I had read or been encouraged to read, or any TV shows that I've watched, or any movies that I watched, it was really missing a female narrative.
Yeah.
And even if it was a female lead, it was written by a man, and it was obvious that it was written by a man.
And it irked you.
Well, yeah. I'm like, I'm not like
At
that.
what age?
Probably pretty young, I would say.
Like 10 years old, you were like, this is garbage?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just didn't feel like I was like that. I'm not like that. Like, I'm not going to put on an apron and walk around and like, who cooks in heels? Like,
Do you
what's that? I don't
remember,
even...
like, yeah. Well, I do, but
And we're okay with that.
I mean, apparently my kids aren't keen on it, so I do it late. But
Well, you do rock the red heels, so.
you know, I do have a thing for women's shoes, but I prefer they be wearing them.
Oh,
That's a whole other story, by the way.
Yeah, so, I prefer the women wear them, but it's fairly well known. I have a thing for shoes, but anyway. And
TMI there, Joe.
no,
TMI.
it's funny. So do you remember like?
Oh, Justin said, I knew it.
Justin, we know you got a thing for shoes, too.
He
so-
saw me in the store. He saw me like, did you have this in a 12?
You guys chasing each other for the best deal.
Yeah.
I got in a fight with a drag queen in New York City over a pair
Did
of
ya?
shoes. I swear to God.
What size foot are you?
I'm a size 12. And I was like, why does every shoe store only go up to size 10 for women?
Yeah.
And so my friend was like, oh, honey, you got to go down to, you know,
Yeah, you gotta go.
8th Ave. And I was like, well, okay. And they were
Yeah.
like, I'm like, so, you know, it's bad enough that they take everything else. Now I got the men
now they
taking my
got-
shoes.
They got the shoes, yeah.
So I finally found a pair of shoes, a nice pair of pink, as you know, like the 90s, 80s.
Yeah.
Pink pumps. I know it doesn't look like I would wear them, but
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
back then. And I went to reach for one, and this drag queen reaches for
Got
the
the
other
other
one.
one.
And I looked right at him, and I was like, no, sir.
No.
Don't you dare. And he was like, these are mine. I was like, No, they're not.
No, they're not.
They're mine.
They're mine.
Remember
I'm
that?
to throw down.
Remember that scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where he's catching a cab out in New York and he looks at Kevin Bacon across the street and they're eyeballing each other and they see the cab and then they start darting for the cab. You know, I can see that play out.
how it is.
No, that is
with a pair
really
of
what it was
shoes.
like, though, too.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, no. No. I did not come all the way down here
Yeah.
just to, throw down with a drag queen about shoes. But I'm telling you, that's where all my cool shoes are now. I know where to go.
Yeah. You got to find that niche shop. you
Niche. It's
know,
all about the niche.
Trash in Vaudeville.
Yeah. And then do my raps.
So, do you remember the specific show though, where you said, "What is happening here?" Like, was it Leave It to Beaver? Was it the Brady Bunch? Like, what was the show where you said, "This ain't right. This is all wrong"?
This is an interesting question.
'Cause
You're
I've
gonna find
never
this
figured that out.
answer is going to be very interesting to you.
Go ahead.
It was Wonder Woman.
It was Wonder Woman. Why? That makes perfect sense.
I loved Wonder Woman.
The original, right?
The original with Linda Carter.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why she was always wearing just like a bathing suit.
Yeah. Why is she wearing that?
I would be like, why is she wearing a bathing suit? Like, she's fighting people. Like, why isn't she wearing comfy clothes?
Yeah.
It blew my mind. As a child, it blew my mind.
Wow, you just saw it as clear as day. You were like, "What is this? They're just sensationalizing the female form or whatever they're doing."
She
and
also, she would, she was this powerful person and she could do all these things, but then she'd be like tied up with chains. And I was like,
Well, that's a whole other issue, though, that has to do with the writer, right? So you
Right.
know the backstory on Wonder Woman, right?
I do. I do.
So
But
do you
the
know the backstory on Wonder Woman?
I guess not.
Yeah, all right. So
yeah, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
they made
But
movies about that one.
yeah,
There's a
I
movie
saw
about
that one. Yeah, but it was just interesting because even as a child, it seemed like just so interesting because I'd watch like Greatest American Hero and then I'd watch like Wonder Woman and I was like, so he's like head to toe. And then Halloween was always in my mind, like, why do these, like, the boys have these huge outfits that like cover, because I'm Halloween in New England, you're freezing.
You're freezing your ass
and
off.
every costume
Not
for
in
a
the last
woman.
10 years, though.
No,
I know
I
there's no global warming. I'm sure you're all
know.
convinced of that, but it's now 70 degrees in Halloween in New York. It's
Right.
perfect.
But growing up as a kid
it
in
was
New
freezing.
England is freezing, and
Yeah.
all the costumes that that were even available for girls were like,
Yeah. Short, like mini
Barely.
skirts,
I
like
was
you wearing
like-
nothing.
yeah.
I know.
I was like, I don't understand. It's like 30 degrees out.
Yeah.
My favorite costume was Casper. I remember.
You just have to do
Just
the
cut out
thing.
the eyes.
Just
yeah.
the white mask and a big white.
I mean, we would wear paper bags over our heads with things written on them and the eyes poked out. Like,
That was your parents telling you to do that?
I
I'm
mean,
sorry,
no, my
Joe.
parents weren't around. I did it on my own. Like, we had to come up with something. It was like, well, like,
I still have PTSD from Halloween masks, and I think once we started
you?
wearing the COVID masks, I started thinking when we were kids, you'd wear that plastic thing, you'd be like, you're trying to get candy, like,
I'm gonna fashion a cube out of this. We're
Yeah.
gonna walk around with
Exactly,
a
yeah.
spit guard. I'm
And just have this
I'm
giant
inventing the new
glass.
spit guard.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same way you do a like the beer helmet. You
Yeah.
know, it's going to be the spit guard
The
helmet,
spit
and
guard
you just put it
helmet.
on, and anywhere you go, and that way you don't have any breathing issues,
you know,
restrictive
I
breathing.
know other people
whatnot.
that have had
So.
problems with the mask. Like, they didn't realize that when they put it on, they were going to become claustrophobic and whatnot and have, like, some real emotional issues.
temperature
where they
alone.
freaked out.
Yeah.
No,
Like, they
I'm
were
kinda
"I can't
like
wear
that.
this."
I get freaked
but
out.
I've been wearing, like, the duster. Like, I've been doing the cowboy thing, you know?
Yeah.
So
Think
the
about
first time I wear it, I'm in the
Reach for
supermarket.
the sky.
And I'm wearing a duster, and so I look like I'm robbing the bank in 1850, and this kid is staring at me, he's like looking at me, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, kid. Like, this is how we do it.
I'll see you at high noon.
Yeah,
Reach for the sky.
what I'm doing.
Neil Perrin says, "Tell them the Matt Perry story."
Oh, God.
Uh-oh.
He also just sent me what's in that cup. I swear it's only
What's
soda.
We can.
Everybody knows me.
This is recorded, so we can always scroll back and watch how
Yeah,
you.
we'll see
you
what
start
happens over
sinking
time.
in the chair. You know.
Oh, it
so
would take a lot more than
so
just that.
what is the Matt Perry story?
Yeah, let's hear that.
So, I lived in LA for a while.
So we're talking Matt Perry, like
Matthew
Matthew Perry
Friends.
from Friends.
Friends.
Okay.
I lived in LA for a while, and I've run into a lot of famous people in and around, and
Did they get hurt when you ran into them?
some of them.
Did Matt Perry get hurt in the story? Because I want to hear more.
No, he's pretty funny.
Hello, sorry.
I got music in my ear.
Yeah.
I was like,
That was cool. It was a little production.
Yeah,
value.
I was
We're
like,
gonna try to add a little production.
We
value.
did not
Give us a
purchase
minute.
that music, so we're
we
just going
can't
to
use
have
it.
to,
I'll tell you a quick story that I got from Matt Perry.
Okay.
Which is pretty funny. So I used to work at this Hotel Sofitel in Beverly Hills, 4-star French hotel, and I did like catering, bartending stuff there. And I would go out with my friends to this place called the Opium Den, which is like, the clubs in LA that, people don't know about, like the famous
Yeah.
people know about, but,
Yeah.
tourists don't go there because we don't want them
Yeah.
there. Anyway, I'd run into a lot of people there. And I ran into Matt Perry there. And, I was like, hello. He's like, hello. And we just keep bumping into each other, at this place.
At speakeasies.
Yeah, basically. And one time I got invited to this party in Bel Air, and it was, they parked your car. It was
Yeah.
the whole, this was just at the pool house. It was huge.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
my God.
I've been on some of those houses.
Yeah.
On the East Coast.
And it was like all Mexican themed, like the food and everything. Like Bill Maher made me margarita. Dennis Rodman was there. Like it was crazy.
Oh,
right?
cool.
But I bumped
Bill
into.
Maher probably makes a pretty mean margarita,
Yeah,
man.
he does actually. He does. And but Matthew Perry was there, and so we were talking because he recognized me from just seeing him a lot.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and he's like, "So where do you work?" And I said, "I work at Hotel Sofitel." And he's like, "Oh my God, I got the best story." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So when he was like starting out in his career, they were having like parties up in the suites,
Yeah.
the penthouse suites, and he was young, and he was hammered. Totally hammered, and there was a tip jar on the piano that was like this huge.
Sure, that huge
Yeah.
Chianti glass, but supersized, yeah.
And he stole it.
Oh,
And
with the money.
He stole it. No, there was no money at the time, but he
okay.
stole it and was just like.
Because
drinking.
that'll get you knocked out.
Yeah, no, he was drinking out of it,
Oh, okay.
and so he told me he was just so drunk. He went and he said, "You got to call me a cab." So the front desk calls him a cab, and he gets out, and he gets into the car, and he falls asleep in the back seat, and he wakes up and realizes he had just gotten into a random person's car.
Oh!
And the people felt so bad, they just drove him to his house.
They knew where he lived?
Well, he was like, I guess
I'll go to
like
one,
Van
2, 3 Main
Nuys,
Street,
yeah, like I live in the valley, yeah.
And I'm sure those people had a much better Matthew Perry story.
Oh, right?
Just because of the, yeah. Oh my God, we had to bring him in his house, and
that's great.
Had to
It
get
was
his
funny.
had to get his pants off, and
people tell the same.
There's
people have
a story.
similar
You should
stories
write a book
me.
about that.
Yeah, you don't even want to hear the stories people have about me.
I have
Like
a good friend named Dan who might be listening.
Yeah.
Who tells that story about me? Like,
anybody from Day Media, you will be immediately fired if you tell any of my stories.
yeah. One time Dan had to throw me in the front door, and then he was so upset about my wife's reaction that he just kind of opened the door and pushed me in. I hit the floor, and he shut the door and laughed.
Oh yeah, I've woken up in my mother's hallway like Merry Christmas. She's like, it's April. Okay.
I love it. I was listening to the Little Willies today. You guys know who the Little Willies are? Nora Jones teamed up with a couple of country, Telecaster playing guys, and they do this one song, and I thought of you instantly. We don't want to sound like we're tripping, but we could swear we saw Lou Reed cow tipping.
I love Lou Reed. Oh my God.
And I was like, that's something me and Arlene would have done.
Yeah, right?
I almost wish I could sing that song with you, and have it be true.
I'm sure we'll do something crazy.
New York City was a pretty crazy place to be buck wild.
Oh yeah. I was there at 19.
Oh, yeah.
Which really didn't matter because I would order a 40 and have it delivered to my house. Like this is back, it's interesting just to, be in New York, and there would be a deli that would deliver like a sandwich and a 40.
Yeah.
And that was back in like the 90s.
Yeah.
And then in LA, anybody that has ever been to LA back in the 90s, they had this thing called Pink Dot.
Yeah.
And it was like this little blue buggy with pink dots on it, and a little helicopter.
Yeah.
And you could call, I'd be in the valley, and then I'd be like, yeah, I'd like, like a pack of smokes, like a 40,
Yeah.
of Schlitz, Italian sub, and I'd like to rent Back to the Future, and maybe get a toothbrush. Like, I swear to God, and they would just show up.
And with all of it.
All of it.
In an hour.
In like an hour.
An Italian sub.
And it was nothing else
This is
like that.
before the internet.
This is way before, yeah. I mean, there was a menu. Like, you could get anything. It was crazy.
On your side of Massachusetts, do they call them grinders?
We never called them grinders. They were subs.
That's west.
Subs. I know grinders,
We're west
hoagies,
side.
subs.
West side.
West side does grinders.
We do grinders. Yeah.
I would think that living in Charleston was kind of cool. What was Charleston like?
Having lived in LA and New York and Boston, to move to Charleston was interesting.
It sounds like a place where a writer would live.
Yeah, it's very beautiful and it's very, very ideal and romantic.
Yeah.
It is not a place where you can go if you want to get a job.
Yeah.
It's all old money. And so unless you're working in like food and beverage or like hospitality, you're not going to get any of those jobs. They're like seventh generation, just handed down. You know what I mean? So, and they don't build companies. They don't build anything past the church steeple in the downtown.
Gotcha.
So there's no high rises. Any big buildings are like at least 30 minutes away, and it's like, I think they'd just gotten Boeing in or something when I
You're not painting a great picture. Why did you even go there?
To Charleston?
Yeah.
Oh no, I love Charleston. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Charleston.
It would be a great place to like retire if you have money or if you're from old money. You know what I mean? But I couldn't afford it. And it was also around the time when I lived there was when the housing market crashed and gas was like almost $4 a gallon. And I was driving like, the mummy minivan. I was like, great, it'll be $80 to, go down the street.
I know.
But it was beautiful. I mean, I lived on James Island. So I was 8 minutes from downtown Charleston and 5 minutes from Folly Beach.
Wow.
It was amazing.
So it's like a barrier island before the main barrier island?
Yeah. It was gorgeous. And I honestly, I still have great friends there that I miss very much.
Wow.
Shout out to Steph and John.
How long were you there for?
From 2008 to 2011. So about 3.5 years.
You were there during the crash?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be rough.
Oh, it was rough. And my daughter at the time was between the ages of 2 and 5.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. There's a lot of tequila that.
And when you left there, you went back to Boston?
Yeah, we went back to Massachusetts.
And that's when you started writing?
And that's when I started writing. Yeah.
So wait a minute.
Because I'm home with a child, and it's snowing, and it's cold, and I'm in a small town outside of Boston, so there's not a lot going on.
So you've done 8 books in a decade. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
It is. You know how many people envy that? All right, so let's talk about Dame Media.
Okay.
Tell us what made you come up with Dame Media?
This is actually pretty funny. When I was, I think, 15 years old, I made my first business cards. And
oh, my God, really?
And it was Dame.
Really?
Yep. It wasn't Dame Media. It was just Dame.
Just Dame.
D.A.M.E.
Wow.
Determination, ambition, motivation, excellence, and that's what it stands for. I was 15.
Wow.
I did that whole, back when you'd go into the store and you'd pick out, your logo, back the old school before Vistaprint. And I'd hand them out to people, writer, singer, dancer, actress, just like.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I was 15.
How many 15-year-old boys and girls, have these ideas and they never come to fruition? It takes a very different mindset to say, yeah, I'm going to be me.
And it's also hard when you're not in an environment where it is cultivated either.
There is no environment where that's cultivated. There's no environment where that's nobody gets that gift.
Yeah, unless you come from a family of filmmakers or writers.
Yeah,
it's
like
hard
Robert
to...
Downey Jr., right?
Yeah.
But look at what it did to him. His dad was a filmmaker and a risky filmmaker and way off the beaten path and a beatnik and on drugs and living in New York, the West Village, whatever. And yeah, he wound up in the business, but it didn't serve him well for a long time.
Oh, I remember.
You know what I mean? It's a curse almost when they say, "Hey, go be you." You're like, I don't know who the hell I am.
Yeah. I'm just mini you, right?
Yeah, I don't know what I am. He winds up finding himself in other people's homes. It's sleeping.
I remember when that happened.
Yeah,
I was
whoa.
Late '90s. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, that guy was in and out of jail. We saw him more in an orange jumpsuit for a good couple of years than we saw him in the movie. And then he comes out and becomes Iron Man, you know. Like,
Well, he went Less Than Zero I think he took that.
Less Than Zero was a great film.
Yeah, but I think it was true to the T as far as, you know.
Yeah, I don't think he was acting.
No.
That was just a weekend for him.
Yeah, but he's
Yeah.
definitely turned himself around. I mean, he kind of like gives you hope in a way, because he was so great. He's so great at what he does, and to have fallen so far, and to have been able to get back up and get his life together, you know, it's like kind of inspiring.
There was he did a couple of films. One was he was in like a he had fur all over his body. You didn't even know who he was. Man, I'm gonna have to look it up.
I have no idea. Look it up.
Yeah, it was
after the fall?
It was between. It was the in between stuff.
Oh,
when
okay.
he played Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah,
that was really good.
You
That was
know,
good,
so
yeah.
he was coming out of it. I think probably around then. But
Yeah.
but there was this film, and he played like a man who just didn't have. He just had just fur covering up
Furry
his.
Robert
What was
Downey
it,
Jr.
like
Yeah.
Stephen King? Like, like
Yeah, like
Like COVID-19, I can't get a haircut. It's kind of fur.
like Bigfoot, like
he
Bigfoot
was
kind of
turning
thing.
into something else.
I will look it up
It's like
here.
The Fly, but
Yeah.
a bear.
but the Stephen King version of it, yeah.
You know, speaking of Marvel movies, there was one thing
We haven't spoken about Marvel movies.
Well, we were talking about.
we did. No,
We were talking about Robert.
You just did.
We were talking about female narrative
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and female characters, and the one. I mean, I'm a total comic book geek. I'm a huge Marvel fan, DC fan. The one thing in one of the movies that bothered me was when Gwyneth Paltrow, who plays Pepper, his wife.
Yes.
She
Are
becomes.
they married? I thought she was just like working for him.
No, they eventually, yeah.
they get
Spoiler
married?
alert. They eventually, yeah.
Okay.
But over a series of the different movies, I'm not sure which one. I can't remember which one it was, but she becomes almost a superhero. She gets sort of infected and has these powers.
Oh, really?
And then it's like she didn't want them. She was like, no, I don't like this.
Wow.
And then the next movie, she just didn't have them.
Oh, it's in the movies?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, so you finally gave someone other than Black Widow a power, and then took it away.
And then you took
and
it
they
away.
never even finished. Like they
They
didn't
never
even.
spoke about it. They didn't deal
No,
with it. Like,
it was like the murder hornets. Like, where are they now?
I
Like,
took the vaccine. I took yeah.
like they fixed her, and now she's normal again. I was just like, that's so weird. So like all these huge buildups of like,
And that irked you. That upset you.
well, think about Spider-Man, radioactive spider, and Hulk. You know, all this. You know.
Yeah.
Radiation and all these things that have happened to these people, and like she had this one little thing where she becomes powerful, and then she doesn't like it, it's icky, and then it just goes away.
Wow.
I was like,
And you see it through the movies? I'm not a huge fan of Marvel or any of that.
yeah,
comic
no,
book stuff.
which I was surprised, especially with Joss Whedon like being so quote unquote pro-female.
Woke.
Not woke. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not as woke as you probably should be. Like woke for the 80s, you know. I'm
woke
gonna
for
get
the
slammed
80s.
from this, but
I don't know. It's fine. It's always funny dealing with men. If you're doing a project with a man now, and they'll do something, and you'll be like, yeah, it's 2020. I'm not looking to get attacked. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, can we change that around? Like, like.
yeah, well, just I mean, I'm not one that is like, oh, everyone have to walk on eggshells or anything, but just be mindful. Just be mindful, like the times that you're living in.
Yeah.
We're living in times where there's things happening. So if you're still writing rape scenes that look, somewhat fantastical from a man's point of view, like
Yeah.
you shouldn't probably be doing that. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not into cancel culture and this whole thing that goes on, but I can tell you that I would appreciate better content when it comes to women, like it would just be nice.
Yeah.
It'd be more interesting because I get, especially with this pandemic, like I'm tired of watching what this world puts out as far as media is concerned. It's all crap. Mm-hmm. There's not really a lot going on out there, especially and I'm not a fan of, I was never a comic book fan. So when these movies come out, to me, they're just visually fantastic, and that's it.
Yeah.
And really only a step above those Transformers, which I can't watch at all.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
So I'm like, for me, there's no great story. There's nothing happening for me when it comes to those movies. Sorry if that offends you, but it's just not my flavor. But I got really like, ugh, there's nothing to watch.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting if we could bring in some other people other than, it'd be nice if we had somebody other than, old white males running the country. And I'm not going to talk politics, but come on. You know what I mean? Like, come on, really?
Well,
like, and then it'd be the same thing. It would be nice. Certainly we have a lot of women stepping up and directing and writing and doing all these things. I look forward to seeing an idea I haven't seen yet. It'd just be nice.
Have you watched The Handmaid's Tale?
I haven't watched it.
Great.
Yeah,
That was great.
I know.
There's
it's
so
great.
much about it. Just
What
it's-
season are they in?
They finished season 3 and they're about to release season 4 sometime soon.
Nice.
It's so good, and there's so much about it that is actually pretty relevant to what's happening now, as far
Well, that's
as like
what they've done is they've.
your rights
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
being silenced
Yeah.
and little things that you don't really pick up on until it's like just without a spoiler, the main character, her real name is June, but when she gets put into this situation, they have now renamed her Offred because her commander's name is Fred, and she's of Fred.
Offred, wow.
And I'm like, wow, what a way to strip her identity. And then I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
When I get married, I change my last name.
Yeah. Yeah.
But guys don't have to.
Yeah.
So it it's just
Yeah.
like little things that it's out there, but because it's not being talked about from a female narrative, you're not as shaken by it.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's being talked about like, well, of course she would be Offred, as opposed to
Yeah.
my name is June. Like, and she
Yeah.
gets mad like as much as she can. She's always saying my name is June. Like, don't erase my identity. Whereas if it was not written, it was written by the show is based off the book by Margaret Atwood. So had it not been written by a woman, I wonder how those scenes would look and how that dialogue would go about that.
So I've had this conversation with a friend of mine who's been married a couple of times, and finally he got tired of
Three times a charm.
having to rename his wives. So
Oh, man.
and he's at the point
I'm waiting
now,
for
he's
your
like-
wife to chime in again
and he's
here,
like,
down here in
I
the
have
chat.
a really great friend, and he's married now, his 3rd time, and he's like, this whole marriage thing is so ridiculous to the woman. It's so ridiculous, and as a guy, it's not something you think about. You know what I mean? Like, we don't question it. We don't think about it at all. So to go to your point, if a man had written that would have never have gotten in.
Yeah.
A man doesn't think of that. We just don't think of it.
They wouldn't think to be angry about it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's what I'm trying to achieve with the work that I write and produce, is that you can have a story, and here's the story, and how you view it and how I view it is going to be very different. And what I get from it versus what you get from it are going to be very different.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation that needs to be had, because, there's scenes where she's being raped.
Yeah.
And I've seen many rape scenes through movies written by men and directed by men, and having it almost like a weird romantic feel to it. Whereas this is like just her inner dialogue of like, I'm not here, I'm not here, I'm not here. And it's like,
Yeah.
just those little things
Yeah.
are so powerful
Yeah.
to the written word, to the female narrative, to opening the eyes of the experience that the woman is having in the screen, on the screen,
Well, so psychologically, that's actually what happens, is that because you can't fight and you can't flight, you have to say, okay, the greatest thing I could achieve for my own physical well-being is to go along with this without getting hurt. So then you have to separate and say, I'm not here, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
Which
and
is-
let this pass through. No man is ever going to write that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
No.
never going to happen.
And
by a
actually,
man.
and because of that, the viewpoint, we've had several senators and stuff when they're talking about, abortions and stuff like
Yeah,
that for
yeah.
rape victims.
Yeah.
Oh, well, their bodies just shut down. And I'm like,
Oh yeah, some of that stuff is just wild.
yes, but not because of the way you think. Like,
Yeah.
we don't just
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to enjoy this. I'm just going to switch off this button. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm literally in trauma right now.
And then, and when you do that, you hear like elevator music in the back of your head.
yeah.
Because
So
it's just that easy button, it's just-
Yeah.
And then, wait for my floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's this interesting ad. It's an old one. You'll probably, if you Google it, could find it. It's by Dolce & Gabbana. And it's a, men's clothing ad. And it's a picture of a woman scantily clad laying down on her back, and there are 3 men. I think 2 of them don't have a shirt on, and they're just kind of standing over her. And I was like,
Yeah.
I remember looking at it, and I was like, we're Dolce and Gabbana, you know, like,
Yeah, like
rape culture since 1975. Like, I didn't even know what to do. I'm looking at it going, and this is the thing, is people are just, oh yeah.
Well, they just absorb it constantly, and they don't even know.
They
what
don't
it's
even
doing to them.
know, you know,
Yeah,
like,
I know.
and I'm like, oh my God, that's so offensive, you know, like.
So a good buddy of mine, Franco, who might be listening, he watches a bunch of documentaries, and he'll be like, "Oh, that documentary was cool." So he watched the one, Super Size Me was the first one where the guy eats McDonald's
I
for a month
remember
or
that.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a Super Size Me 2,
Oh, gosh.
but it's about the marketing of these things. So it's about the marketing side and how much control they actually wield over us without us even noticing that it's happening, you know. And I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, wow.
And they
What
have
the
control over us.
This inner music is making me feel.
What? iPhone just decided to start playing music.
It's
I
the
don't have
aliens.
this app.
I,
And yet,
It's 5G.
it's 5G. That's it.
I don't have this app. I play
Bob and Doug
It's not
up
my
on the satellite.
I listen to Pandora, and that ain't it. And I'm like, what the hell?
Well, there are like 4 planets in Mercury retrograde or something
Is
right
that
now.
what's happening?
There's like 4 planets in retrograde, so yeah, either that or they're just telling us that
All
because of
right.
5G, fall from the sky, and then
don't
Sahara's
know,
gonna
man.
wipe us out. And
Yeah, when is it dust
Meth
storm?
Gators, yeah. I don't know.
I
I'm
thought it was
thinking,
here last week. Now it's coming this week. I don't know what's going on.
I
with
think
the-
Gators was last week, Sahara's this
Meth
week, and then in
Gators.
July it'll be aliens, yeah.
But there is an actual problem with aggressive gators because people are.
Flushing like drugs.
Well, no, people are getting so the African gator is far more aggressive than the American gator.
Okay.
So now sometimes though people grab them and bring them back to this country illegally, and then when they get too large, they let them out, and they're mating with American gators.
Yeah.
So we actually actually have
Q Gator King.
a gator
Netflix.
problem that's growing in the middle of like south of Lake Okeechobee. Like we actually have an aggressive gator problem that's developing. That and the better one though is the Cessna that was flying in with illegal snakes and crashed.
Oh
and
my
now,
God! Don't even talk about
And
snakes.
there's like these 30-foot Burmese pythons all over
Oh my God!
Florida, and they actually went.
I still won't see snakes on a plane.
I won't. I don't want any.
Snakes don't bother me
Can't
at
even
all.
talk about them.
But they have to go to where these snakes are indigenous and hire those people and fly them here, so that because they can spot them in the trees instantly. Like we're no good at hunting them. So you take our best hunters, they're like shooting deer and boar and different things. But these are 30-foot snakes, and our hunters don't see them. And they're right in front of them. They
Oh,
don't see them.
God, that's
So
like a nightmare.
We had to go over to other continents
need
and
some
say,
wine,
hey,
Dean.
there's you guys have Burmese pythons? Come on, we got a bunch of them over here. You guys, we'll give you what they give them a lot of money per snake that they catch.
my God.
And we fly them over here and let them run around South Florida and tell them kill all these things because they're moving further and further north.
I mean, I'll hire someone to kill any snake near me. Like just
Really?
Just
Snakes are fine.
anything that moves that fast without feet is a little freaky to me.
Yeah. It's well.
Well, just so you know, people, if Joe Exotic goes missing, Carol Baskin fed him to a gator.
Yeah. A crack gator.
A crack gator.
Wow. So we were talking about something that was interesting, and then the music came on. What were we
Yeah, I
talking
know.
about? Something happened
Can't
with the
explain it.
music. Yeah.
But Justin seems to think that you brought a poltergeist into the studio, so that's why all hell's breaking loose. So
Yeah, it's possible that there's something about your energy.
yeah,
Your female angst is messing up our male mojo phones
yeah.
and just making them play soft music.
Awesome. I am pretty powerful, I will have to say.
I don't know.
So what's your work you're proudest of?
Well, my baby is, besides my daughter, obviously.
Yeah.
But writing-wise, my baby is Butterflies Wake.
Yeah.
It's about an underground group of vigilante women.
Yeah.
And it's...
I read it. Did you read that one?
I think we previewed it last
But
year.
you didn't read the actual script?
I don't think we got the whole script, or we
might have
did get the
gotten
whole
synopsis.
script.
I wound up with the whole script, but maybe the rest of the group got
Yeah.
How many pages was it? Because it got yeah, no, you said
You ever see that book in the month?
Don't do that to a man, you know?
to
Come
that-
on. If
that-
we have to wait, you do too.
that film project last year. I think you submitted it. You submitted it to that
Yes.
film project. So I read whatever that was,
Yeah.
which I'm thinking it was a short. I don't
Like
think
a
it was the
synopsis
whole.
or a treatment.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm so I have 2 books for that series released: Butterflies Wake and Butterflies Rising, and I've kind of been halfway through the final one, which is Butterflies Forever, for a few years now. But I think it's also when you start a story that's like a trilogy, how do you end the end of the end? You know what I mean? It's especially since I'm trying to frame it amongst the current landscape, and there's been so many different things happening from, the 45 coming in and the Women's March nationwide, worldwide, and then everything fast forward from there. I mean, there's just been so much that I'm kind of just like, as my friend Suzanne would say, we're like watchers. We're just watching. I'm just kind of watching and absorbing. As a writer, I'm absorbing everything and taking from it what I feel would be a good reflection in this final, part of the series.
So wait, so it's working? It's not working? I'm not sure I understood exactly where you're at with it though. So it's not happening, or you waiting for it to come to you?
I feel like there's an end. As I'm writing, I feel that there's an ending, but it's not there yet. If that makes any sense. But
you're still living it.
Because I'm still living it. Yeah, it's hard to write something that you're still in the midst of because you haven't come to a conclusion on it yet.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
But that's so it has not, because the original is a period piece. So what time frame? So the last one is current.
It's current.
That's an interesting thing. I as artists, we are supposed to reflect back to society what we see of it, right? So I can understand your predicament, because you just can't keep up. It just gets crazier and crazier every day, every week.
Well, imagine if I had written how I was feeling about Trump becoming president and the tears that I cried, okay, versus what I'd be writing right now. I mean, it's like that's like a whole chapter of books itself, like a whole series of books itself. So
did you really have tears?
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you something. That's interesting. So, were you a Hillary supporter?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay, good. So, I wasn't.
No, I was very supportive of there being. I've always been a very supporter of there being more women in charge and in power.
Yeah.
But not just because they're women.
Yeah.
Because they're qualified.
Yeah. See, I didn't think that I could vote for someone just because they were a woman.
I would never
didn't
vote for somebody
buy
just
that.
because they're a woman. No,
Yeah.
they have to be the right woman.
It had to be a right person, and I don't care if they're a woman or not.
Right.
So I just didn't vote because I had no one to vote for. I think I wrote in somebody's name who's like an anarchist.
Yeah.
It's like a guy I grew up with. I was like, check this out.
Branch Davidian sounds good.
But I can tell you that in the beginning of the whole thing, I was like, all right, you know what, I get it. It's a populist movement. It's not the populist movement I would have been a part of, but okay, I get it. But now, it's a very different thing now. A very different thing.
I just feel like, there's a lot of progress. There was so much progress, and then we just got kind of kicked back at, 2 steps forward and 18 steps back to the 1950s, where I'm like, hello, double standards called. They want you back.
Yeah, they want you back. Yeah. It's weird, man. It's weird. So, funny enough, I figured that we were going to wind up talking about some of these feminine issues and whatnot. So then I had contacted you and said, I have a favorite thing that I watch on YouTube, and I asked you to look at it, and it was based on this book. So I go out and get this book on Audible, and not realizing, so normally a book on Audible is like 6-7 hours. Some of them are 5. Fucking book is 39 and a half hours. I'm like, what the hell is this? But it turns out to be the book that every feminist then worked off of. From. And so I listened to it all last week and got many, many hours into it, and was shocked at, so actually so the book was written in 1949. and it holds as much water today
I
as it
bet.
did when it was written. However, for a woman to be able to write this piece in 1949 in France, and get it published and then create an entire feminist movement from it that everybody then goes back and dips into, because there's a lot of scientific work in it, there's a lot of actual history in it, it's all, cited and notated. So
So real news.
it's very real. It's very real, and it's interesting when you look at some of the parallels between what she does. Is she constantly talks about Jews and Black Americans and women, and it's like constantly like this triangle of these people, right? And it's like, wow, this is written in 1949, so it's before civil rights movement and whatnot, but and it still holds water today.
It's oppression.
Like, it's really amazing where we've come, because it's much better than, let's say hundreds of years ago. But yeah, we move so slowly as human beings when it comes to progressing forward, but we really do, we have made tremendous strides. And the particular place we find ourselves in now will not last for long, because it's just, it's obvious to all of us, many of us,
There's a lot of them out there that aren't. It's
There's
not
a
so
lot,
obvious.
but it's not. Yes,
But
no, it's true.
it's the law of entropy, though. Things will unravel.
Yeah.
It just will happen.
And whatever, I like to say, whatever happens in the dark can always be seen in the light. So
Go
unfortunately,
towards the light, Carol Ann. There's your poltergeist. Okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting when I try not to get too upset about it. Like, I find our times right now enthralling. I could do without the violence, but I'm wildly excited about the times we live in. It's exciting.
It's exciting that at least it's much louder and more amplified. And I think that the creation of, the internet and social media, has it's like a whole new wave of, say, book burning. Where, there's this flood of information and people started really kind of getting up on their soapboxes because they could so much easier now form their groups and stuff. And then, so they're like, okay, well, we need to control information. How do we control the masses? Well, we can use social media and do kind of like what Hitler did. He changed the narrative.
Yes.
Very scary. If you've ever been to a concentration camp, when I was over in like Prague and Vienna and Budapest, I went to one, and the history that they would teach us about people, the Red Cross would come over to check out the camps, and they'd get it all pretty and get everyone all dressed up and put out tons of food and be like, oh no, we're just taking care of everybody. And then they'd leave and they'd throw out their stuff and they'd take everything away. And it was like, the manipulation of the narrative.
Yes.
And, so it's...
Well, that became wildly abundantly clear in the last couple of weeks, because, one side was pretending to be the other side, while that side was pretending to be the other side. And you're like, wait a minute, and I don't want to take a side.
I just want the truth. I want the truth.
Yeah, what's going on here? Like, you guys are breaking windows and claiming it's the other guys, and you guys are setting up websites saying that these guys are doing this other thing, and you're like, whoa.
It was just all about division, and being able to like step up with and get together is the only way to defeat, is to be together.
Yes.
Because we're stronger together, and the more that we let each other divide, and people get angry, people get really angry. And they start attacking each other because, like, if they see that you're not following the narrative that they've decided to hold on to in their head, they will attack you.
But I just think as human beings, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And history repeats itself. And we find ourselves now at the fall of the Roman Empire, man. Basically, like, where we are now. Like, because, listen, I don't really have a problem with looting when it's a pair of sneakers. The looting problem I have is $6 trillion at the back door of the Fed. But as long as I fight you, we don't look at that going on over there. You know what I mean? And we're like, oh, yeah, they know what they're doing. Yeah. Let's us argue about a kid who's stealing a pair of Timberlands. Like, that's not looting. That's not looting, people.
Meanwhile, like, so much money changed hands over the course of the last 5 months. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, like, they literally printing trillions of dollars, and you're worried about that?
Yeah.
Like, who cares about that?
Because they want you to worry about that, so that you don't worry about that. It's Wag the Dog. Do you remember Wag the Dog?
Of course.
This is one of the most brilliant movies,
You
and
know?
I say every time I say to people that if they don't remember, I'm like, it's Wag the Dog, you know, like, well, we've got some stuff going on, so look over here.
But I feel bad for the people that are putting these memes up and the people that, post on Facebook. I don't unfriend people because they have a different view than I have, and I don't unfriend people because they're not as understanding, because their worldview is their worldview, and that's fine. They're still good people.
When do you unfriend them?
But if they, want to sell me naked pictures, that's when I unfriend them, But,
I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore.
Well, you never charged, but, it's, but I just, I look at them and I feel bad. I'm like, really? That's how you really feel? Like, that, I would never, even if I felt that way, I wouldn't put it publicly out there. You know what I mean? Like, and even like we were talking about like some of the witch hunts that went on. And when I first started seeing the witch hunts going on about people who would post something about whatever, that was slanted in a way that people didn't like. And then everybody gathers around and calls their office or their job or their business or whatever and gets them fired and all that, and cancel culture and witch hunts and all that. I thought of, the Crucible.
I was funny because I was just thinking, witch trials.
So this guy goes on trial in front of the McCarthy hearings, and they say to him, like you're a bad person, and you're a socialist, and you're a communist, and you're a this, and you're a that. And as an artist, he went home and wrote The Crucible. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he wrote it, and it's one of our greatest pieces of work. And he didn't write it about that time, and he didn't write it about that court case. He wrote it about something that happened much later so that it will survive throughout time, that we can always go back to The Crucible and look at it. You know what I mean? And be like, okay, this is what a witch hunt is, and he happened to use witches, like the Salem witch hunt. But I find it interesting when people, as artists, we got to be a little careful. I don't mind reflecting back to society what I see, but I would think that you're probably smart to give it a hot minute before you finish it, because you might not be seeing it clearly right now. We need a little time to go by
to digest it,
to see it clear enough to be fair. You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, things that I thought of even just a few years ago. I wouldn't say that my mindset had totally changed, but the focus, where I put my focus has changed.
Yeah.
On certain events.
Like what? Like, give us an example. Like,
just the idea of, feminism as a whole. I've had people say, we need to have, it be an all-female Congress, or we should demand that it be 50%. Congress should be 50% female, 50% male, and I actually took a poll in one of my groups to see what people thought about that, and I'm still kind of questioning, and again, it goes back to, well, are they that qualified, and the thing is, I also, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but
no,
we were talking.
What time is it? We have time.
It's 8:03.
Oh, we're fine. Go ahead. So what did the poll come back? What did people thought that it should be mandatory?
Yeah, some people did, and I wasn't sure. Like, part of me was like, that makes sense. We're half, it's half and half. Like, why not? Yeah. I've even had people pose questions to me like, and I thought this was very interesting.
Even the Dakotas, though.
I know, right? If it's a law about women in their bodies, should men even have the right to vote on it?
I got one better for you. Mm-hmm. I don't think you should be allowed to vote unless you own a corporation. I've actually said it out loud, and I just said it now.
Wow, okay.
And it would actually solve a lot of problems. Because in order for you to vote, you'd start a corporation.
Okay.
Right?
True.
And now you've taken your own agency, right? Like, so you have Day Media. You can vote. Okay. You own Day Media.
But what about the people in my corporation? Can they vote?
Well, it depends. Do you want to have employees, or do you want to do business with another, or do business to business?
I think that takes away right of people who are I think corporations will just own everybody.
They do now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the exact issue. It's the opposite. It's like, well, then I'll just join you. You know what I mean? Like, so now I'm a corporation too.
Huh.
You know?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I had another person pose to me, should people past a certain age, like say past 80, we'll say 85, whatever, be able to vote on decisions that will affect people that won't affect them because they won't be here?
Yeah.
You know, so I found that very interesting because you have a lot of old white men voting for generations of people that are not old white men.
Yeah, well, there's certainly...
You have old white women, and yes, it works on both sides of that fence,
Exactly,
too.
but it works that way, too.
Well,
I mean,
actually, the odd thing about the book that I was listening to for this interview was saying that the difference between the Jewish people and the American blacks, because it's a different experience than anywhere else in the world, and women, is that the Jews and the American blacks can isolate themselves. The women can't. They have to be a part of the male society. They can never separate themselves from men 100%. And what happens is that, and it's true to his point, is that when a woman aligns herself with a man, then she will not vote. She will vote his way as opposed to voting for the Jewish woman's vote or the black woman's vote. She will vote with her white husband.
I think Alice Paul might might challenge you on that one.
So it's like,
I mean, the suffragists, you know.
certainly but well, this is 1949.
Okay, yeah.
But it's interesting when the particular problem that women have is that they can't become isolated. They can't have a Jewish community or a black community, and then
Because they're first considered women before they're considered anything else.
because they're I mean, what
But
are
not
you
just
gonna do?
women, they're considered wives
Yeah.
or daughters.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is the identity has got to be from a female narrative. So I don't say I'm somebody's wife or I'm somebody's daughter.
Yeah.
And I also don't say I'm, white or I'm,
Yeah.
Christian or whatever. I'm a person
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. Well,
And I might want to align with as many groups as I can, and I'll vote
Yeah.
whatever my heart says.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially if you watch The Handmaid's Tale, you'll see where some of that comes into where, losing your identity when you change your last name,
Yeah.
becoming the, part of a couple where you no longer have your own identity. It's brought up. There's so many tiny little things that make that so.
You think June is being a little typecast because she just come off of Mad Men,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
who she was a secretary being chased around the Madison Avenue advertising
Yeah.
agency back in the 50s, 60s,
50s, yeah.
So that seemed kind of interesting that she's
Well, I
playing a
think-
character in the same context.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that she was a perfect fit for it because she's kind of this, scrappy, spunky, as they
Oh.
would say, little woman. And in Mad Men, she was always trying to kind of speak up for herself and kind of be the thorn in the side of this,
She was just below like a Chloe Sevigny, like you know, or just above a Chloe Sevigny. Like she was close enough to that, but not Buck Wild. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
not- you know what I mean? Like
she was
just on the edge of
palatable
it.
for both sexes, is what I would say.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think with Handmaids,
Which is a trick.
Yeah.
It's quite the trick.
So it was a nice, if you were a fan of Mad Men, even as a man, to follow her over to Handmaids. I could see why they did that. As from a casting perspective, I
Yeah.
could see why they did that.
Yeah.
And I think it was brilliant. You
Yeah.
know, I really couldn't imagine anybody else. I mean, the look in her eye. I mean, she gives that look. You know what I'm talking about, Dean? She's gonna murder you.
Yeah.
Like-
She's got that thing, but it's
She's
like, but she walks a fine line, and then she also does the other.
It's a
Yeah,
very
it's a
fine
very-
line.
yeah, it's a very
but
fine
it's a line that a lot of women in history have had to walk.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not a fun one to walk, you know.
No.
So
Actually,
Elizabeth Moss, I tell you, she got to play the best character. I mean, in two big deal
Yeah.
series,
With long
you
runs.
know, with
Yeah.
with
And
you know,
great
and
casts.
we expect this Handmaid's Tale to kind of go for a little while, you
Yeah.
know, and they just keep jumping over the moon every time they do a season finale. Oh my goodness!
Well, how many seasons are they at now?
They just finished season. They're streaming all the first 3 seasons right now on Hulu, and then season 4 I think is scheduled to come out sometime soon. But they're definitely going to have a season 4.
Is that like? Would you like to be on that writing team or something? Is that
Oh,
like
God,
something
yeah.
that you would like?
Totally.
Do you ever read those scripts at all?
I don't, but I like when I find something that I like, I try to read it first. Like Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste. I can't say her last name. I think it's Ng.
Okay.
I read it first.
Yeah.
Even though I knew it was on Hulu, I actually read it first.
And
then,
that was a movie or
it's actually a
pilot?
series,
Oh, it's a series.
starring Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, so you read them all?
No, it's just it's a TV series, but it was one book. And then they took
you
it
read
and
the
turned it
book.
because
We
they.
spoke about this.
Yeah.
That was just a month ago or so that you were doing that.
So good.
So Reese Witherspoon, though, we should talk about because you're kind of not emulating her, but she did a very similar thing where she was like, "Hey, man, like, yeah, I'm not Legally Blonde anymore, like, you know, and I want to work," and wasn't finding work, and just said, "You know what?
I'm gonna do it myself.
I'm going to do it myself," and was an avid reader and picked out a bunch of books and optioned them and paid lots of money for them with her own money. She put her own money into it and turned around and did quite a great number of pieces.
She's done
with
very
that
well.
production company and wins awards. I mean, she's doing it and not taking no for an answer. So for me, it's and the same thing I think is going on now politically. Like, you cannot stop the human spirit. I don't care how hard you try.
No, you can't.
You are never going to stop the human spirit, man. Like, and the harder you push, the greater you're going to make them. Muhammad Ali, you know, I was listening to Thelonious Monk on the way here. Thelonious Monk is a great jazz piano player, and he had his cabaret license taken away, his union card as a musician to play in clubs. And because of that, he went and wrote some of the greatest jazz of that time period. And then, you know, went on for, I think, about 3 years. You know, because they caught him with like a gram of marijuana, whatever, you know, like, and
Criminal.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, because they pushed him down, he went, you know, like, I can create this, you know, and I think that you know, some of these powers that be, they ought to smarten up a little. You know,
Well,
because
you know what?
you keep pushing these people, you're not going to get what you want. You cannot push these people.
Well, the human spirit is fluid like water. So if you
Yeah.
drop a rock in the lake, it's
Yeah.
just going to go around it and eventually wear that rock right down
Yeah,
over
absolutely.
time. And that's exactly how the human spirit is. And
Yeah.
the more you try to move
Don't
it,
be the rock, be
Yeah.
the water.
be the water. Be the water. I'm telling you, honestly,
Yeah.
you can't stop it. And that's a narrative throughout all of humankind, throughout all
Yeah.
of time is that you can't break the human spirit. If it's strong enough, it will get through every barrier. It'll climb every obstacle and go and surmount
100%,
everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that what goes on now is fantastic because of the COVID situation, and then we had this terrible thing that we all saw. I didn't look at the whole video. I don't need to look at that, but you know, and now it's like, you know, masses of people from all different walks of life are like, "Hey, man, not having it.
We're
You
done.
know, like we're done.
We're done.
We're done. You're not no more." And I know a lot of cops that are good people, man. I really do, and their families are scared. Like, it's not easy to be a cop right now.
Oh no.
You know, an interesting perspective on that was somebody had posted on Facebook. She was an actress who, I guess, her father was a captain in a police department.
Yeah.
Years previously, and basically, you know, a lot of it has to do with the police unions.
Yes.
They represent charged police officers.
Yes.
And they fight diligently to keep them in their position. So in a way you could think, well, why aren't we just firing these people? Well, in a lot of, I guess from what I can imagine, a lot of times they can't fire them. They wind
No.
up suing to get their job back.
Yes.
And because there's lack of information or just the diligence. It's not always about right and wrong. It's about who's got the heaviest lawyers in there.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
there's
on
some
their
cultural
side,
issues
so.
inside of that need to be addressed, and I'm not looking to solve those problems,
Yeah.
right? But I can tell you that I know some good cops.
I do too.
Some.
Some are great and some are not.
Well,
and
Yeah.
But you have to imagine, you know, there's so much just within that whole culture of, you know, look the other way, that they get in deep. And then they can't get out. And then when their buddy does something really awful, and they can't speak up against it
Well, they
because
risk
they've
their
done
own life.
because
They
they've
risk their own life,
because
you
they've
know,
done
like-
something really awful.
You know, let's take it to another point, to lawyers, right? So lawyers get arrested all the time because they find out all this inside information, and then they're just too greedy or whatever, and they act on it, and they wind up getting disbarred because they have access to things that nobody else has access to, information-wise and whatnot, and they get themselves in trouble all the time. It's the human condition. I don't care, like, obviously that we could change some training, but ultimately, you're always going to have a problem when you give someone power. You know what I mean? You give somebody power over other people, eventually you're going to have a problem.
I think you
Enough
know,
to drown
maybe,
yourself.
Yeah.
maybe a way around this would be, you know, when over the years they've enacted so many laws to protect children.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely necessary, absolutely. And they don't even ask questions. If they think their child is in danger, they rush in and they take the child and they put that child in safety. Now, if there was a way that, you know, if there's a particular police officer that is endangering the public, you know, if there's been, you know, a moment, obviously, maybe it's just short of a murder, maybe it's something, you know, there might be some way to get that person off the street. Not fire that person.
Yeah.
Because that person still they need their due process. But if you feel like someone's endangering the public
Yeah.
by their presence of being there, you make them ride the desk. You, and then it becomes part of their record. And not losing their job, but losing the ability to be out in public.
Yeah.
You know, especially, it depends. I mean, the punishment should fit the crime. I mean, if it's just, you know, something that could actually, somebody who's actually been assaulted, hurt, you know, just short of obviously killed, I think there's a way to, you know, enact some sort of protection, you know, for the public in general, you know.
It would be nice, but you have to understand that a majority of the people that are being accused of doing the wrongdoings are white men. And the privilege is so far up that it's hard to even get there. I mean, you talk about, like, affluency. I mean, look at Brock Turner. Brock Turner raped a girl behind a dumpster, and he got a slap on the wrist. You know?
Because he had a future.
Because he had a...
Think of his future.
Yeah.
Right? That was the argument.
Yeah.
But his future.
And,
But-
and then George Floyd dies literally for no reason.
And they go,
like,
look at his past.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
we've put body cameras on these guys. We can only do so much. If a person is going to commit a crime, they're going to commit a crime, and if they have that ability in them, obviously, you know, what happens is the victims, you know, it becomes a civil matter. And the police department will pay, the city will pay, the county will pay severely. And they, you know, nobody wants to have to pay out a,
Which is
you know,
why they
a
they
massive.
sweep it under the rug.
So you know, it gets to
That
that
means I
point.
pay.
It gets to that point.
We
you,
pay.
you have to hit them where it hurts. And unfortunately, the only way you can hit a city, county franchise is to hit them in the bank account, and then they can't get picked up by insurance, because the insurance will go, yeah, we can't cover you guys anymore because of your policy. And if you
got an
kind of hit
idea.
them where it hurts, then it might actually help correct some of those, and they can take somebody off the street and say, yeah, you're progressing and you've got some issues, emotional problems, whatever it takes. How you started to how you are now shouldn't. You know, we need to kind of step in, and you need to come off the street
If it was that
and
easy.
protect the people.
I've heard some great solutions.
We didn't think, nobody ever said if it were that easy when it came to protecting children. Nobody ever said that.
Well, I
Even
don't
that
think we
is
go
a
far
kind of
enough. I don't think we go far enough when we get like the alert that says whatever. I think every road, every state border, I think every single thing should be shut down if a child gets taken.
Yeah.
And
Freeze.
that'll end quickly. Yeah, I mean an absolute
Red light,
freeze in
green
place,
light.
like done. A child is taken.
Yeah.
Stop absolutely everything until we find that child. And believe me, child will not be. If you know 100% you're getting caught for taking a child, you will not take a child. You know.
Unfortunately, a lot of the people that take children are usually the parents, and it's a domestic squabble.
Well, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes,
And then it's like, well,
through the
are they
courts and
right? Is it a
whatnot. Yes,
woman trying to escape a
absolutely.
bad marriage?
But we do have a
situation?
huge problem with child trafficking
Oh,
for,
yeah.
for the sex business.
And
it's a
again,
big
that's
problem.
also money,
Yeah.
way high up. That it's a problem that is so powerful, beyond scope, beyond able to even break it down, because
You,
it's
you
been
mean
set.
like a Jeffrey Epstein kind of
Yeah.
situation? Yeah. No, absolutely. It's
filthy,
It's not something
and-
that
yeah.
we can even.
No.
But I'll tell you this though, Dean. I don't think you're wrong. But I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about how these guys aren't necessarily trained very well. Compared to the military. And we've militarized them. They're a paramilitary group now, the police, and they've been given lots of funds and lots of weapons and lots of gear, these tanks and all these weird vehicles. So we've militarized them, and we've given them, like, when they get out of the car now, they don't look like a police officer. They look like military. And the problem is they're not getting military-style training. So if I give you, a tiny little bit of training, and then you never come back for training. Whereas in the military, the person who was speaking says, I trained for 18 months to go into the field for 6 months. You know what I mean? It's a huge difference.
Yeah, and if you're giving the
difference.
like psychological training,
And then
weapons
constantly
training.
having to take them off, like, this person was saying, like, the number was high, 25 or 30% of their time should be in training every week or every month. You should not constantly be put on the street and go into these situations, because you got to imagine if you're on the job and you get called to a domestic disturbance and you show up and the wife says he hit me, so you go and put handcuffs on him and she hits you with a hammer because you're putting handcuffs on him. That's like kind of like, wait a minute, no, like that's a lot to deal with as a police officer. Like, it's not an easy job.
and police
Yeah.
do not make a lot of money, and you.
I know some that make quite a lot of money,
But the
whatever.
ones on the street, like they not all of them make what I would consider be worth risking your life all the time.
Well, it's never. yeah.
And I think
but
the statistic was-
the money thing. It's like it's
But
still
take that money
it's a
instead
personal
of-
choice.
instead
if
of
you're not
suing them-
making good money and you think you could be making better money, get a new job. Get a
Well, I didn't
different
become a
career.
dog groomer to make lots of money.
Right.
Like,
No, but what
it's
I'm
my
saying-
calling, like
What I'm saying is that that there's, I think the statistic was there's 5,000 people, 5,000 citizens to every one
police officer.
police officer
Yeah.
in the country.
So how are you going to do that? That's insane.
So that means when it hits the fan,
Yeah. You're
5,000 to
5,000 to
1.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
those are the odds
Yeah,
for.
that's
I
horrible.
mean, now you tell me, do you think they're making enough money?
The
No.
scariest.
No, I don't think they make enough money. I don't think
scary.
they get enough training.
They don't get like
They don't get
psychological
enough
training,
psychological training.
and how to deal with people and how to
Yeah.
not be racist
Yeah.
and aggressive and don't
Exactly.
go in and
It's
shoot people
not
in
a-
their sleep.
It's not a great job, but you have people, respected nurses don't make enough money. Teachers don't
Yeah.
make enough money,
Yes.
Women.
but they choose it. They didn't choose it. They didn't chase the money. They
Yeah.
didn't obviously chase the money. They chased the job.
Yeah.
That was their calling. I can't fault them for that, but I also can't. It's kind of hard. I can't. It's just impossible to make sure everyone gets paid what they're worth.
Yeah.
What personally that person's worth. If it really gets down to simple economics, you can't pay everybody what we all believe they should make if there's just no money there.
But they can pay the men.
It's funny because that book that
know.
I've read was the book that I'm listening to
Is
deals
it-
with that issue, especially when you bring up things like teaching. Like this is traditionally a female thing. They were allowed to teach. Only they were allowed to teach up to a certain age, and all these the history of these things are incredible. And actually, as a creative, listening to this thing on Audible, it was like every 5 minutes, a whole new story was inside of a nugget. Like just a couple of words passed by, and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole thing inside of that statement. And it was just over and over and over again. Like every 10 minutes I was like, oh, I should write down that name. Oh, I should do, oh my God. And you're
Yeah,
like,
it's just like an
holy
onion. It just
cow,
keeps-
keeps going
yeah.
and going and going. But it's funny because, he's not thinking that, right? So, because Dean's a white man in America. I'm a white man in America. I don't ever look
Am I?
at the
Oh my
teaching.
God.
The teachers,
happened?
yes, we won the lottery.
Knock, knock. Who's there? You're white.
Oh, yeah.
We won the lottery. But because people would ask me, like, "Did you play the lottery?" Like, I already won the lottery. I'm a white man in America. Like, what are you talking about? Win the lottery? Play
Yeah.
it. I won.
I won. Be thankful. Right.
But that comes with responsibilities. But that's fine. Not everybody realizes that. But I don't want to win the lottery. It wasn't my choice.
I guess I didn't get my check.
So.
Still scratching?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that it's very easy for us to say, like, yeah, nurses and teachers picked that path because it was their calling. It wasn't their calling.
Yeah.
It wasn't their calling. They were. It wasn't their calling.
No. Women didn't have mentors.
No,
I mean, you
it
could say
wasn't
like
their calling.
hundreds of years of men just grooming boys up to be men into
Yeah,
these
they
societies
grew to be
of
a doctor.
the
They grew to be the
Masons
doctor.
or yeah.
It takes from first grade. You create a doctor.
Sports,
From, you know what I
doctors,
mean?
lawyers, they're groomed,
Yo-Yo Ma,
finances.
Yo-Yo
yeah.
Ma, right, the great cellist, he said it takes 3 generations to become a professional musician. The first generation to get out of poverty, the second generation to get a college education, so that then they can create a professional musician.
I believe it.
You know what I mean? Like,
Unless you're
and
born
it's
into
the same
money,
thing-
that's how you have to do it.
Well, yeah, then you skip that first generation. It still takes you a second generation.
Yep.
You know, if you were to win the lottery, you don't suddenly be your child. Then you could become a great musician. You know what I mean? Someone who dedicates their entire life to this thing. But you know, certainly there are doctors that figured out when they were 13 and they came from meager beginnings and they studied and were studious and did it. And lots of women are doctors. You know what I mean? And not lots of men now are becoming nurses. You know, but these things traditionally, you know, throughout history, are relegated. They're not, you know, they're not a calling.
Yeah.
They're relegated.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, like I
Trying
going
to get
back
her going. Let's get her going.
going back to going back to the where's
Jazz,
my wine?
jazz.
No.
People out there were expecting sparks.
Yeah. I'm kind of like silent and violent.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding. No, I think that mentorship is very important, and that's why the female narrative is so important, because, you know, women, we were not groomed. Like, my generation was not groomed, and my mother's generation was not groomed in the way that we wanted to be as women. We were taught, like, my mother was taught how to sew or how to cook or how to, you know, that kind of stuff. But then she broke off and she went to school, and she was one of 3 women in a room full of 500 men taking accounting.
Yeah.
And now, over time, accounting has become, you know, it's, you
Yeah,
go to class now, it's mostly women.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get there. And so having a mentor, you know, bringing women into the fold and saying, you know, like Sheryl Sandberg, like, lean in, like, learn from each other, you know, mentor each other. And as a filmmaker and a writer, it starts there too for me, is writing for women so that they can see themselves and say, oh, I can do that. Like, I can be mighty. I can be fierce.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to ask permission to be who I am.
I got to tell you, that's my point when it comes to the thing, too. I don't understand why a woman would compete with a man even for 5 minutes. I would never compete with a man if I were a woman. I would be woman and be proud to be woman and know that I was, you know, capable of things that men just aren't capable of.
Well, this is
and
the
I would
thing,
never I would never look at a world and say, it's terrible that I can't be the top of that corporation. I'd be Oprah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd be
We
like,
should all be Oprah.
you know what I mean? Like, I'd be Tyler Perry. I'd be Oprah. You know what I mean? Like, just go, you know.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Why do you want to live in a man's world?
Well,
don't live in it.
You're raised your whole life
I'd have
that
my
you...
own currency. I would promote my own currency, and you should do it. There is a
Go on it.
cryptocurrency just for women.
We're all of an age that our parents taught us to do things a certain way.
Yes.
Go to college, get married, have kids,
Yeah.
keep a job for 30, 40 years, get your retirement, retire a tired person.
Yep, follow the plan.
Follow the plan.
Yeah.
So
Move to Florida.
Yeah, right. Yeah. When you're 65.
Move to Florida. So
Yeah.
we did that, but I'm less inclined to teach my kids that.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and I'm more inclined to tell them, find your path, follow your path, wherever that path leads. And so I think there's going to be a shift, but it's slow.
It's
a
slow.
turtle
Humanity
pace
is slow.
because one generation is kind of going into the nursing home. This generation is hopefully teaching our kids, about mentors, finding a mentor that's going to help lift you up. And because, mentors are just great because what you try and teach a child, random strangers have so much more influence on kids than a parent will. At least at a certain age. Right.
No. They don't listen to their parents.
Well, at a certain age, it becomes, I will listen to a complete stranger on the internet, and that'll be the gospel. I will find that, and so that's. But
even my kid's soccer coach, I'd be like, I would go to him and be like, hey, listen, he don't listen to me, but he's gonna listen to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you do it. Tell him.
In their defense, in the defense of children, because I have a 13-year-old daughter, so that's a crazy age.
Nah.
We need to listen to them. And I know that that's hard because we, to talk about, we're around the same age group. We come from a place which I'm sure maybe your parents were like, do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely.
You children to be seen and not heard.
I didn't get that one,
control,
but the first one.
Suppression, mind your P's and Q's.
Know your place.
But what comes with that is a lack of identity.
Yeah,
and
subordination.
You're trying to be like, the father trying to make his son the basketball hero when the son wants to maybe be an engineer, or the daughter trying to make her be a ballerina when she probably wants to be a lawyer, and the pushing of this is how you have to be. That mindset is, I think, starting to change from our generation with our kids, at least for me. Like, I know I put my daughter into things that she might like, and, of course, I'll get excited if it's creative, but I'm not going to force it down her throat. I'm going to teach her how to deal with her emotions, how to deal with society, and instead of suppressing her and controlling her and stifling her, I'm going to let her find her identity, and then I'm going to teach her how to thrive with it. And it's just a whole different mindset of parenting and listening to your child and listening to what they want and not just trying to put them under your thumb all the time, because all you're doing is you're going to take a decade off their life because they're going to spend the next 10 years trying to find themselves, and they could have done that by now. By just you being a little, and it's hard to raise a spirited kid. I was a spirited kid, and when I told my mom I was pregnant with a girl, she was like, good.
Payback.
And then it is payback because I know what I was like. But you know what? I'm in the midst of it. I have to stop and say to myself, this is a spirited kid. And at the end of the day, as hard as this is, she's going to be awesome. She is awesome because she's going to find her voice quicker than most because I'm listening to her. And she's less likely to fight me when I'm listening to her because I'm hearing her. I'm not just talking at her. I'm talking with her.
So you're giving her a voice. You're giving her her own agency to deal with whatever it is. I mean, listening is really half the battle in life anyway.
And if you don't want the world being like the Handmaid's Tale, you better start paying attention.
Some people want that, man. Some people
not
want
this
that, man.
girl.
Like it's out there, man.
Oh, I know it's out there.
That's probably.
That's why I have a passport.
In some,
Here I come.
In some very conservative corners of the world, that's probably like a wet dream for those conservatives. It's like, oh, I wish that would be the. Would be the. The way to be.
I know a lot of great conservatives that don't think like that, but there is certainly a segment of our society that wants to go back to the 50s. And
because they want to control.
And have this weird, greatness.
But the only people that even benefited from that were old white men.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, you had to find, salvation in all the other people that were oppressed along with you. I mean, I read this great book called Forever, and it was about it was historical fiction, and it's about this guy fleeing from Ireland to New York City, and he has like a curse put on him, and he can live forever as long as he never leaves the island of Manhattan. So it talks about everything that happens from like the Rockefellers and
Wow.
the Dutch.
I think every New Yorker
New York,
feels that way.
right?
They'll live
God.
forever as long as they never leave. Yeah.
God.
But it goes from all the way back then.
We love New York.
Yeah.
All the way up until like 9/11. Like
Really?
it's incredible.
What is this, a book?
It's called Forever, and it talks about how
That'd be a great series.
like the indentured servants, the Irish indentured servants,
Yeah.
would kind of like team up with the African American slaves.
Yeah.
And to find some sort of solace and form some sort of army together because they were both sort of in the same boat. It was like, okay, well, your life's horrible, mine's just a little bit better, and it was just to see the way New York kind of unfolded under the oppression and under all the
Yeah.
growth and under all these years.
Yeah.
It's a really great read. I definitely recommend it.
It's great, like, because we were talking earlier about how, be careful who you push down, right? Because, so the Irish were slaves before African Americans, and then, but what happens? You get John F. Kennedy and Barack Obama, where, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, and you're not going to ever hold them back. We're going to keep fighting, but I
I'm
don't
going to
know,
put a
this country-
5-minute
that's fine.
last call here.
This country, I mean, I don't think blue blood, obviously blue bloods have a real issue, right? They don't want to see the browning of America. Like,
Yep.
I don't have any problem with it.
I like
I don't
diversity.
have a problem at all. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it, and I'm pink. I'm so white, I'm pink.
You're so white, you're pink.
And the last thing I want to do is walk into a room, everybody looks like me. It's like, I just don't want that at all. I like it. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
more diverse we can get, the better we are.
Yeah, well, look, living in New York and I mean, it's nice to see a different person every 5 seconds walk
Yeah.
by, as opposed to being like, wow, this is just white. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Even in film, right? So, so we met because of OIF, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my first film, I actually went out of my way to make sure that the casting was mixed.
I do the same.
I literally went out of my way to make.
Was that
sure.
Lemonade?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So it was written with Chinese people, but I looked, but I couldn't find them. So I went with with dog people, and it worked out. And I changed the script a little bit, and I didn't write that one, so I had to call the writer and say, hey, I'm going to do this. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. But I went out of my way to make sure that happened. Because that's who I am. That's the world I want to live in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well, when you grow up, like, you're from New York, so when you grow up in an environment where there's different people all the time, and then you go to a place where you're like, oh my God, it's like the same person over and over again. I never realized how segregated Boston really was.
well, New York is way more segregated than Florida.
Yeah.
Like wildly segregated.
Yeah.
Where I'm
Boston's
from is-
worse, I think.
It might be, man. But in Boston, you got a lot more Irish though that are like still like tight.
It is basically Irish people in
Yeah,
Boston.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
all it is. It's Irish people, and then
Yeah.
there's like a small community of like a little diversity growing.
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
some
crazy.
colleges, but the Irish
You don't
is like,
realize
whoa.
until you move out, and then you come back after living in like L.A.
Yeah.
and Charleston and New York, and I
Yeah,
come
but-
back and I'm like, wow,
There's a
Boston's
lot of
kind of
Irish.
bad. Like there's a lot of Irish.
There's
Like
a lot of Irish.
everybody's Irish.
Yeah, and some of the most violent things I've ever seen were in Boston.
Yeah.
Like if they left to fight, man. We had a gig once. I was in Boston. I've had some great times in Boston, but one time we were at this gig and we.
This is the very first conversation you and I
come up
ever
really-
had.
so,
Was
well,
this?
then I'll tell him. So I come off stage, and when we put like some of our gear like by the side door of the bar, and I had a guitar stand, and so it's whatever, twice the size of this thing, and all of a sudden like 3 guys head out the door like in a rush, and one of them grabs my guitar stand and he goes outside and bashes some dude with it like in 1 minute, comes back in, puts it right back where it was, full of blood. I'm like, what the?
And I guarantee nobody cared. Everyone was just like, yeah,
Nobody-
Barry's
yeah.
mad.
But yeah, I mean, I was like, what the
Yeah.
hell just happened, man? Like, yeah, Boston's a different kind of town.
It is a different kind of town. People will see people beat the crap out of each other, and you're just like, yeah, he's had a few,
Yeah.
Like it's
normal.
nothing. Like it's totally normal. And I'm like,
I didn't grow up with violent Irish people. I was lucky in that regard, where I didn't get hit as a kid. There was no violence in my house. I'm not used to violence at all.
Right.
But I got lucky. Because some of them did.
Part of that lottery you won, I guess.
Yeah.
you know.
So quick before you leave, what are you looking forward to the most in the future? Like, what is it that we want to say? Hey, go get them.
well, I'd like to not die this year.
Yeah.
I'd like to make it to 2021
I
because it
know.
was kind of like, I mean,
There you go.
it's setting the bar low right
2021,
now at this
yeah.
point. But I
Oh my
just,
God.
Checklist 1.
I would.
Yeah.
So to live would be great. I would love to see, systemic racism to be broken down, taken apart, and there to be, a more fluid view of how we should treat each other of any kind of, race or color or creed or age or gender. I'd like to see more women in roles of power, qualified women across the board.
But what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do, Arlene?
I'm going to write the songs. I'm going to write stories that are going to make people think about what is going on in their world. And really, I want to write the stuff like Margaret Atwood and things where people go, wow, that really opened my mind and now I can't unsee it.
Do you like that whole subtext thing where we make it a different world than our own, but it mirrors it in a way, like The Crucible, like this Handmaid's Tale, where it's not now, or none of us experienced it, but the subtext reveals what exactly is happening right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because with all the different types of writing that I've done, what I love to read the most is historical fiction, and that's kind of what it is the idea that it's real, but it's just enough fantasy that you can stomach it.
Yeah.
Even the first couple episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can watch this because I couldn't digest it. I had a hard time, and my friend Suzanne was like, no, you have to watch this.
Hang in
like,
there.
I know you need to watch this.
Because it was overpowering, or it wasn't there?
No, because it was
too much there.
It was
like watching Death Wish when you're 10.
It was
was
overload. It's every scene is just
it's painful. It's very painful because it's uncomfortable, because it's true, because it happens.
Wow.
In this certain context.
Wow.
It has happened, and it's in people's minds, and when you're watching it the pain that the women are going through, and when you're watching it that there are men that want that to be true.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what's so scary. And I had a really hard time. Like, it's not something like, hey, I'm just going to watch Handmaid's Tale. You just binge through the first 6 seasons.
I don't think I could sit still in the entire season. I was still trying to get, should I be watching this? Am I allowed to be watching this? Is this right for me? Is it right for me to be watching this?
It was that challenging.
It was, you have to really kind of check yourself, you know, and go, I don't think I should be watching this. You know, this is kind of...
I was at like episode 3 and I was like, I almost don't know if I can get through this series. It's really good, but it was too real sometimes.
Wow.
But then I remember, my dad used to say, I'd be like, why do people watch horror movies? Why do people watch murder mysteries and rape scenes? Like, I just don't understand, Yeah. And he was like, well, know thy enemy. And I was like, he was like, if you don't know what to be afraid of or what makes you uncomfortable, you won't know how to face it.
If we don't show you how bad
things can get, or are,
watch this and that's pretty much
Actually,
it.
that's what my sister said to me about The Handmaid's Tale.
You don't know how bad things could get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd even check myself, like once I've got through the first season, I was like, okay, so am I just now desensitized to this because I've been watching it? Or is it just that I understand that this is... there's a message here and it's important to watch. So you'd have to, when you're watching a show and you have to check yourself mentally, that's good writing.
But I mean, why? Because it felt like conditioning for you to accept this reality?
Well,
or it changes enough where she breaks out of it. Because otherwise it becomes conditioning. Like, you got to be careful there.
Well, no, because it's still uncomfortable to watch. It's just less uncomfortable because I almost can, I guess as a writer now kind of see where they're going with it. And I understand why. But I mean, there were times where I'd be like, oh no, I would never.
But then you don't understand. Like Westworld, because eventually they break out of their chains and become, the AI that they want to be. Have you ever seen?
Yeah.
You watched especially the last season of Westworld was pretty great because they put up the ultimate challenge.
Westworld just lost me after season 1. Season 1 was great.
I didn't watch season 2. I watched season 1. I left season 2 alone, and then season 3 is fantastic.
Oh, really?
I only watched the first season.
Season 2, I kept having to back up an episode.
Yeah,
I missed something. What's going
and
on?
I just and you're able to leave out the whole second season. It doesn't
Really?
matter.
You can
the
do that,
third
huh?
season's that good, where you're like,
Yeah, season one just had me. Just boom. I was like,
and
all right,
we
great.
all watch it because of the cast. You know what I mean? So that didn't last long. Like season. But
I have a quick question for you both, actually.
go ahead. I'm not afraid.
No, it's nothing bad.
No.
Do you watch with subtitles on?
I love subtitles.
Me too.
I love movies with subtitles, and like foreign films. I have no problem with that. And when my children were born, my wife was concerned that we'd wake them up. Even now, still today. And they're like, the house is like, they're on the other end of the,
Yeah.
they might as well be in the neighbor's house. And she's like, lower it. And I'm like, eh. But, so for years, there was no sound that came out of my television. It was only subtitles. So I'm a professional subtitle reader.
See, I prefer it, and not because of the sound, but because as a writer, I find it so interesting to see the dialogue just a half a second before the line is delivered, and I find it almost more impactful. I mean, I know other people are like, oh God, why do you have to have subtitles on?
I guess I feel the same way about the visual aspect of it. I can.
Well, yeah, like I know cinematographers that watch without sound on.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, because they want to see the cinematography without the words getting in the way.
The story is the writing. The story is the writing. You can, unless you've mastered the art of storytelling without sound, without a narrative or anything like that. So.
But the colors and like especially like Handmaid's Tale, like the colors and everything is so coded and it's just phenomenal.
They're a great relationship. They sound and it's been going
Well,
on for
twice
100
now
years.
I've tried to write films with no dialogue. So I did okay in Torment.
You did great.
But
You did great.
he doesn't get any dialogue. But in the last one I made that we haven't viewed yet.
I have notes for you on some of your
Oh,
films.
cool.
He sent me links last week. I started watching them, and I'm going.
But
I have notes.
the one that we're waiting to view.
I've seen
There's
that.
no with Kyle as the lead. There's no dialogue until the very end, and even then he doesn't say much. But
It's so good though.
that one's kind of cool. My niece just saw that for the first time yesterday. But all right, cool. Well, anything else you want to say goodbye to the people or what?
I just want to say thank you for having me here.
Did you have
today.
fun?
I had a great time.
We kept it cool. We kept it.
Oh, it was very
professional.
cool, very interesting
We kept it
stuff.
cool.
I mean, you and I could talk about some really weird stuff. So this was this was interesting.
We hit some tangents here.
That's fine. Though. We
Definitely.
kept it cool.
We're kind of tangent.
Yeah, we could have gone much further.
Yeah, we could have much darker.
We got time. We saw Lou Reed cow tipping.
The time we saw Luke Reed count to figure out.
I want to thank Sal Martino for joining us earlier, and Gene Culver. And Kim Marie joined us kind of late in the game, but you guys can always rewind and watch the beginning of this. So, but great, I'll let you guys take us out.
Beautiful. Thank you all. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one. We'll do it again next week. Next week I have Kelly Weaver, and then the week after is Daniel Bowman.
Danielle,
Yeah,
great
so,
people.
Yeah, good people. All good people. Thank you all. Have a good one.